Hello again to another Agakala reaction. Today we will be watching 10 ways TV shows blew your mind without you even realizing from whatculture.com. And I just jump into it and just see what shows and how they blew our mind
There's no
without us
denying the
realizing
ridiculous amount of work that goes into even totally mediocre TV shows, as they're generally forced to work to a much tighter time and financial deadline than movies, and where every minute and cent counts. Putting out a great TV episode therefore requires the combined efforts of hundreds of cast and crew members, but audiences often end up taking small screen entertainment for granted and fail to appreciate the absurd amount of work that goes into its creation. So let's take a look at some of the best tricks that were right under our nose. As I'm Jules, this is whatculture.com, and these are 10 ways TV shows blew your mind without you even realizing. Number 10. Jesse's floating high wasn't green screened. Breaking Bad. Perhaps the single most memorable shot in the entirety of Breaking Bad occurs in Season 2's Mandala, after Jesse takes heroin for the first time and is shown levitating to the ceiling, symbolizing the euphoric, otherworldly nature of his high. Now, to the untrained eye, it's fair to assume that the scene was simply achieved by filming Aaron Paul against a green screen, which would have then been composited.
I'm just gonna say that actually, I was just thinking they probably just lift him up or something and just kind of like move him around and stuff like that. I wouldn't think, maybe it's because I'm kind of older. So to me, like, a green screen, yeah, comes to some of the things. Basically, all that must have been done on green screen. But this one, I wouldn't assume that was made on green screen.
Onto a separate plate shot of the camera, craning upwards towards the ceiling. I mean, the shot just looks CGI, in large part because the lighting source on Paul's face never changes, which screams fake to our brains. But incredibly enough, it was actually achieved entirely practically and in camera. Rather than resort to green screen tricks, Paul was simply placed on a secure platform along with the camera, which was then moved upwards towards the ceiling, creating the desired effect. Number 9. There's invisible CGI everywhere. Mindhunter. David Fincher has proven in movies like Zodiac and The Social Network that he's a virtually unrivaled master of employing subtle visual effects that massively enhance the mood of his works. The very same was true on his brilliant Netflix crime series Mindhunter, which uses a frankly mind-boggling amount of CGI to extend sets, remove unwanted elements, and basically fine-tune every single frame of the shot to Fincher's perfectionist liking. Watching the show's VFX breakdown is a jaw-dropping testament to how subtle effects can massively elevate the tone and production value of a show, while granting the director a fascinating granular amount of control over their projects. In Fincher's case, this apparently even means changing the damn curb to look more period accurate. Especially impressive in the breakdown is the pitch-perfect compositing of green-screened actors into a digital environment. Even watching the show in 4K, you'd basically never guess that the actors weren't in a real location. It's often said that the best CGI is invisible, and Mindhunter is mesmerizing proof of that. Number 8. The loot train attack set the most stuntmen on fire ever. Game of Thrones. Whenever we see Daenerys' dragons on screen in Game of Thrones, there's a fair chance that we're about to see at least a few nameless goons get lit up, and this was taken to a delightful extreme in the show's 7th season. The season's 4th episode, The Spoils of War, features the unforgettable loot train attack, where Drogon lays waste to the Lannister army with his devastating fire breath. Given the complexity, cost, and danger involved in actually setting so many stuntmen on fire for real, you'd probably assume that HBO simply did it with digital fire in post-production. But alas, they did it the hard way, in turn setting an industry record. The technically challenging sequence resulted in 73 separate fire burns, a filmmaking record, including a single shot where 20 stuntmen were set in fire to simulate the aftermath of one of the attacks. Though the stuntmen were of course sufficiently prepared to be lit on fire, the director of the episode has spoken of the immense difficulties in coordinating such a large cast of stuntmen to be set alight at just one time. The end result is absolutely spectacular, albeit dangerous looking enough that many will just assume that it was achieved with VFX instead.
In order, I thought that was achieved by VHS, not VHS, what I'm talking about, the CGI. And like in the previous one, in the Breaking Bad, I didn't assume that. I was thinking just going like, wow.
Number 7. The red light, green light arena has CGI walls. Squid Game. Netflix's Squid Game has been on practically everybody's lips since it dropped, but the show hasn't really received nearly enough praise for its extremely well-implemented VFX. While it's no secret that some of the more elaborate games were achieved with the help of CGI, you probably didn't notice that one of the more simple games also received a major post-production assist. The very first game is a grim, fatal take on the playground game of Red Light, Green Light, where contestants caught moving are shot dead on the spot. The game unfolds in a large, expansive arena featured numerous times throughout the show, but you probably never noticed that, in fact, the arena's walls walls were almost entirely digital. Indeed, the distinctive provincial wallpaper was added during post-production, with the walls instead being covered with blue screens during shooting. It isn't clear why this decision was made when it surely must have been cheaper to build and paint the walls practically, but the effect is staggeringly seamless enough that you'd never know it was intangible. This is especially impressive in a later episode where the arena is soaked with rain and yet there's not a single telling sign that the background is a feat of sophisticated trickery. Number 6. Episode 6 is a masterclass of trickery, The Haunting of Hill House. Mike Flanagan's Netflix horror series The Haunting of Hill House is an absolute masterclass of writing, acting, and direction, with Flanagan demonstrating absolute control over every aspect of the production. This is most palpably felt in the show's incredible 6th episode, Two Storms, which despite being almost an hour in length, is comprised of just 5 long takes, the longest clocking in at a whopping 17 minutes. The entire season's production was centered around this episode, because with one of the single takes requiring a seamless transition between 2 locations across time, it was necessary for the 2 sets to be built with an adjoining hallway. In a fascinating tweet thread, Flanagan detailed the astounding particulars of the production that surely everybody watching took for granted. The sets included hiding places for cast members to sneak around, doubles were used to teleport characters, and a secret elevator was built into the set for the cameraman to move between levels. Additionally, there were literally hundreds of precise lighting cues which required the cast and crew to have their timings down to the second or risk blowing the entire take. The much discussed 17-minute take was almost also ruined by a damaged camera dolly, which broke apart moments after a successful take was finally completed. There's no denying the technical ingenuity of the episode as presented, but it's easy to underestimate just how much work went into staging, rehearsing, and shooting it. Flanagan himself said, "Production was murder and almost killed us all, but it was the easiest edit of my life. Took 10 seconds." Number 5. The New York exteriors were CGI plates. Ugly Betty. Although Ugly Betty's pilot episode was filmed in New York City, where it's set, in order to cut cost productions, it was shifted to Los Angeles for the remainder of the show's first 2 seasons. As a result, anytime we see Betty out on the streets of New York, we're actually seeing an impressive feat of digital chicanery. These scenes were actually all shot against a green screen and then ingeniously composited into a background plate filmed in New York. Despite the show being over 15 years...
I did not knew that, and I watched that show years ago, and damn, they did a good job on that. Because I would never think about the fact that that was not filmed in there on the streets of New York afterwards. That's a cool thing to kind of do, feat. Sorry guys, my shirt is kind of like not working, not cooperating with me today. But damn, oh, that's another surprising one. Like with the Breaking Bad, I wasn't that surprised. With the Game of Thrones, yeah, I was surprised because I was thinking that was CGI. But now, wow, that was just like with each one. So this is not even number 1. So I just kind of wonder like what's gonna be number 1 is gonna surprise me, because so far it just goes from something that I'm not that surprised to going like really, really high, and just being like totally like no way.
Now, these scenes generally hold up shockingly well today, to the extent that you probably never even notice unless you saw the VFX breakdown. This can largely be attributed to how closely the lighting was matched between the 2 elements, as is typically the most blatant giveaway in bad compositing. Unsurprisingly, the shooting style presented a major challenge for the cast, but production actually moved to New York for the 3rd and 4th seasons, courtesy of a tax credit offered by the state of New York. Even so, it's rare that 15-year-old green screen looks that damn good, so bravo. Number 4. The dead whale is mostly practical. The Boys. The Boys Season 2 episode, Over the Hill with the Swords of 1,000 Men, features one of the most ambitiously grotesque set pieces to date, where Billy Butcher drives a speedboat into a beached whale, brutally killing it and smashing its bloody carcass onto the shore. Though the impact shot was obviously produced digitally, you might be surprised to learn that the subsequent whale corpse was actually almost entirely practical. Indeed, a massive silicon and styrofoam whale prop was built for the gnarly aftermath, where the boys find themselves caught up in its innards. The whale's mouth and tail contained animatronic elements to portray its final moments of life, while the whale interior was augmented with VFX for its pulsating organs. The whale took an entire 5 months to design and perfect, with the practical effects team even building fully lifelike, anatomically correct guts for the interior and creating a hidden back door to give the camera crew more space to move around. The end result, of course, is absolutely spectacular. Number 3, Michael B. Jordan is a blend of live action and CGI. Love, Death, and Robots.
That's awesome.
The Netflix
episode,
animated
by the way.
series Love, Death, and Robots prides itself on presenting
The show itself, it's a masterpiece in my opinion. It's really good stories. Well, most of them, but it's just making you think and stuff like that. So like, it's just absolutely brilliant. I recommend that to everyone.
with the most groundbreakingly photorealistic animation ever. Enough so that audiences couldn't figure out what the hell was going on in the second season's 7th episode, Life Hutch. The episode stars Michael B. Jordan as a stranded pilot struggling to survive on a hostile planet, and Jordan's visual presence was persuasive enough that many simply believed that he must have been a live-action element. But the truth is way more interesting, though. You see, Jordan appears in the episode through a state-of-the-art combination of live action and VFX. A shockingly lifelike CGI model of Jordan was created for the episode and appears in many shots as nearly imperceptible from reality. But for more challenging close-ups, Jordan's live-action performance was integrated into a digital environment. It's a mind-blowingly seamless effect all in all, with it being incredibly difficult to spot where the CGI and live-action elements coalesce. It just goes to show that the most impressive effects work is often a harmonious combination of the practical and the digital. Number 2. Looking Glass's mask is 100% CGI. Watchmen. HBO's recent Watchmen series is a masterpiece from top to bottom, from its magnetic performances to its cinematography, score, and, yes, its plentiful visual effects. But the most impressive of all the VFX elements is one that might have passed you by, the reflective mask worn by Looking Glass. Though the mask's reflective nature invites the audience to wonder how the camera's presence was concealed, most surely assumed that some post-production tweaking was simply done to paint the camera out. But of course, there's far more than just a camera to deal with in reality. There's lights, sound equipment, and various crew members who would have most certainly got caught in the reflection. And so the decision was made instead to have Looking Glass's mask be entirely CGI rendered, with actor Tim Blake Nelson wearing a green mask on set onto which an extremely lifelike reflective texture could then be projected. Every single environment that the character appeared in was also digitally mapped so that it could then be appropriately reflected in the mask's material. And to achieve the correct depth, distance, and detail of said reflections, Nelson also had to wear a GoPro camera on his head. It's an unfathomable amount of work for an effect that most people watching won't ever fully appreciate, and yet maybe that's just the point. And number 1, the show uses almost no green screen. The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Disney's
The Mandalorian it's the first show I think that's made it's on in front of the screens. It's all around it and stuff like that. So basically, they're gonna explain it. But when I watched how Mandalorian was made, that was just wow. Because I thought them a lot of that kind of came from green screens, but no.
Mandalorian perhaps marks the point at which TV visual effects well and truly feel like they've come to match the CGI that we're used to seeing in movies. And while you'd be reasonable to assume that Disney simply poured a few $100 million into the most refined and sophisticated green screen VFX that money could buy, they actually went an entirely different route. You see, the show contains very little in the way of a conventional green screen, opting instead to use a bespoke technology called Stagecraft, a gigantic 360-degree LED video wall that can project dynamic virtual backgrounds into the filmmaking space which move and react to the camera's movements. This is a massive improvement over green screen for many reasons. First of all, the actors can actually see the environment that they're in. Yep. Directors won't have to worry about how the end result will look in post, and technical issues with green screen like mismatched lighting are now non-existent. Best of all, because the virtual environments created during post-production use the Unreal Engine, they can be iterated upon at a moment's notice, adding and removing elements, changing the staging of the scene, and so on. Needless to say, the show's backgrounds look absolutely fantastic and massively boost the show's sense of tactile immersion. It goes without saying that Stagecraft will probably end up replacing standard green screen on major Hollywood movies in coming years. I mean, Disney are already using it on a few upcoming MCU movies, and we, the audience, are going to benefit from that.
Yeah, that was really... the Mandalorian thing was really, really good. And I agree with him that that's probably going to change for a lot of...
When you watch illegal streams.
Why are you doing that? Why did that? That's weird. Okay. So, what I was saying... Oh yeah, that basically... they will be probably change that into just gonna have to do big enough studios and stuff and big enough stagecraft thingy, but yeah, it's an awesome way to work out, I think, and to make videos and movies and whatever. So basically, yeah, that's the future, I guess. So thank you very much for watching, and I see you tomorrow. Bye.